Okay, before we go any further, I want you to know I don't endorse anybody. I endorse nobody. I see what somebody's going to do, and then I support him, I don't support him. And I got issues with Trump, and I've been getting slammed by people, Trump, 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 I'm unsubscribing. Well, I don't care. Do whatever you want. But I don't endorse anybody until they do things that I think are right. And the first thing is we got to get this stuff open to the public. Trump is the only one that'll stand up and say these things, if he will. I don't know if he will or not. So far, I haven't heard anything from him. I've been trying to get through to him for years. Not hard. You guys are going to have to do it. I can't get through to anybody. I am blocked literally 100% everywhere in the world. So if you don't get it out to Trump, it's never going to get there. And I know everybody's, Trump, he's a social maniac. He's on every single thing all the time. Well, respond to this, Mr. President. It's time that we get this out in the open. And governing will be a lot easier when we can get rid of all this nonsense that we've been harnessed with over the years. And now is the time. You want to drain the swamp? We got a swamp to drain, I can tell you that. Okay, my friends, you're another shocker du jour. This is supposedly the Trajan womb cave, carved, supposedly. Now, this particular tiny little line that runs right up the center of everything, you see it there? You think somebody carved that? You see what I pointed to there? That little tiny line right there, running straight down. You see that? You see that little bitty line? Runs right from the top, right up there, all the way down. And these are exactly, perfectly carved female anatomy. Now, at the bottom, yes, they did carve a step here, but that was a human being. And this right over here, my friend, is a coffin birth. That's the baby's face, right there. And that's his arm coming down here. The hand is broken off. And that creature died in the flood. You see this side of the carved womb cave, isn't it? It just has the normal vaginal ripples. This side is what's called a coffin birth, where the baby didn't come down the vaginal canal, it came through the side wall. Now, pay attention to the details. This is what kills me. I can't imagine how incompetent some of these geologists are to miss these things. Look at this tissue. You see that tissue? It broke through the wall of tissue when it was alive. Well, when it was dead and soaked. And that's the key why that little strip is there. Now, and I'll explain that. It's the labia, well, the linea, I'll explain it in a minute. That's the baby's face. That is the tissue that has separated from the other tissue that's around it because it forced its way out through that tissue. Now, don't forget the little line. Let's see if we can understand that anatomically. Now, I don't mean to put anybody down, but I cannot get a response. And the only person in the world that can get anybody's ear about this, I think, is Donald Trump. I am not political whatsoever. I got issues with him. I got issues with all of them. But if he can, when truth comes to light, that there were giants, God is real, Christ is probably just exactly as advertised as far as I'm concerned now. And that's not allowed in academia. All right, here's the key. The linea alba is the center line of your body. And the linea alba is a fibrous band running vertically the entire length of the center of the interior abdominal wall. It's right down that center of your abdomen, receiving attachments of the oblique and transverse abdominal muscles. And those are just, I think they call them adherens, which they just stick together. That line sticks together, and it actually expands when a woman becomes ready to give birth. Now, images in muscular individuals, its presence can be seen on the skin, forming the depression between the left and right halves of a six-pack. Here, I let him use my picture here to show this. Now, this is where that line runs, and it runs all the way down to the pubic bone. And that is where the blastula seals itself. All right, it's as simple as this. It's very, very simple. The original thing is a one single cell, the egg. The sperm invades the egg, and it starts to bloop, 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 and make all these little sub-eggs, basically. Okay, here's the deal, the development of an embryo. All right, it starts out with an egg, just one egg, and the sperm invades it, and it starts to grow. And as the cells divide and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, it gets to a certain stage, and it inverts. And this is the inversion, gastrulation. And the gastrulation goes inside, and this is the seam, the blastopore seam right there. That is that little strip I showed you up the center of that vagina. Inside here is where you have all your abdominal cavity will actually end up forming in here, and that's called the archeteron, and that's where all your digestive system, all your organs, all that. This becomes the outside of your body, and that's where it seams together. All right, this is the story with this digestive cavity. It happens during the early stages of human development, as your ball is starting to okay, so this is something you probably don't hear a whole lot about nowadays. Archeteron, it refers to the digestive cavity. That's your abdominal cavity. During the early stages of human development, as the ball of cells gets bigger and bigger, it pops inside. And it's more specifically, the archeteron is the digestive cavity of an embryo during the gastrula stage, which we just went through. And the archeteron will eventually develop into the complete gastrointestinal tract. So that's where your gut is. And that one seam seams it together, the linea alba. Okay, here's the thing. Geologists have no clue about biology. Biologists have no clue about geology. Nobody understands the preservation process and the chemistry and the body anatomy and so forth. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am the only person on the face of the earth right now that understands this in its completeness. And like my boss said, if it's true, it ain't bragging, and that is true. And this is the linea alba. Now, the linea alba normally is a pretty tight junction. Now, when a woman becomes pregnant, it turns into what's called the linea nigra, which means a dark line. And it starts to separate just because she's pregnant, because she's expanding. Now, we know she was pregnant because she had a baby. So it was already in the condition when she was soaked in the Great Flood, as they all were. This is a product of the Great Flood. The crack in the linea alba snapped open. All right, here's the details. In most people, the linea nigra darkens enough to be visible in the second trimester, around 20 weeks pregnant. Before you're pregnant, the line is called the linea alba, which means white line. So as it gets darker, they call it the linea nigra. When it's the white line, is you're not pregnant. So when you are pregnant and the line gets dark and visible, it's called the linea nigra. Well, why would it get dark and visible? It's opening up. And the only thing that's holding it is the tendinous. I believe they're called adherens. Let me just show you how cells hold together. There's several different types of cell junctions. All right, one more time. Let's take it all in one shot. That little split goes right straight up the center of the entire length of it. And that is exactly what the linea alba, in this case the linea nigra probably. Now that is the baby, which means this is a coffin birth. That's the actual tissue ripped away as the face and arm are forced through from the expansion of the body during death. Now, it was soaked for a very long time, and when it dried out, that split showed right up. Now, the pinkish, it looks very pink everywhere because there is literally, it was flushed with blood in this area. And green, mossy stuff grows where there's blood. It just loves blood. And that's why you see all that growing just on the face of it. So don't forget the line. All right, in cell junctions where they meet together, there is this gluey stuff, and there's adherent junctions and desmonas and gap junctions, tight junctions, and so forth. It depends on where they are in your body, but it's cell to cell. I think the linea alba is probably this one here, the desmonas. I really don't know. I have no idea. I can't find any details on it, but it's being pulled open, that's for sure. So that's what gives you the dark line, the linea nigra. All right, now this is the whole package. We have the vagina, and these are the vagina ripples. That's just the way it's designed. That's the cervix with the little bump, and then a tube going through here into the uterus. Now let's see what they have to say about that womb cave, the Thracian womb cave. Okay, so they call it the Utroba Cave, and this is from Utroba Cave. It's only a minute long, a little over, and they're going to explain what mainstream says about this cave.
The Utroba Cave, also known as Womb Cave, is a prehistoric cave sanctuary in Kırklareli Province, Bulgaria. The cave resembles a human vulva and dates to the Thracian period. Historians believe that it was once used as a fertility shrine. It is known in Bulgarian as Utrobata or Pishtera Utroba. The cave is located 20 kilometers from the city of Kırklareli near the village of Ilanitsa, and it dates to 480 BC. It is also referred to as the cave womb or womb cave, because the entrance is the shape of a woman's vulva. The inside of the cave resembles a woman's uterus.
Gee, that's just... I wonder why. This is just amazing. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine what they're saying? Yeah, they carved it in. It just accidentally looks like this and that.
Locally, it is also called the Blaring Rock. Researchers believe that the entrance to the cave was a slit, which was then widened by humans. The entrance to the cave is 3 meters tall and 2.50 meters wide, and
that's like 10 feet tall.
Inside the cave there is a 1.3 meters tall altar which has been carved. Archaeologist Nikolay Ovcharov believes that the cave and altar were used by the Thracians. There are several Thracian
I'm going to tell you right now, all of these things were turned into memorials and shrines to the gods and to the giants. That's what Stonehenge is. Those are nothing. You look at the heel stone, I mean, it's ridiculous that they don't realize it's a foot. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's just incredible. These are our geologists that are forcing kids to repeat what they say. Can you imagine? This is called the heel stone. And then there was another one was called the twin stone. It was a twin of this. That's a foot. These are toes. These little spots at the end. Let me come in close so you can see this for sure. That's a foot. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I don't know that. This is where the main blood supplies are. This whole front here has a ton of blood coming down to the toes. And at the tips of the toes, you see that little dot and that little dot? And little dot, little dot, little dot, little dot, all down. That's the tips. It goes down the artery and comes back to veins. And that's how they work. And the same thing in your hands. It has the same deal. And this, I believe, is the vein side, which is the black. And it looks like it died laying flat on that side. And this is where all the blood runs up in here. And those are the toes. The heel stone at Stonehenge. All of these ancient giant things were memorials and monuments, and then Stonehenge is as well. All of the body parts in Stonehenge are body parts. They're not just stones. All right, here's another one somewhere. I don't know where this one is, but these are the vaginal walls. They call them the ripples, the vaginal ripples. And that, again, is the linea alba, seam. And they're everywhere. It appears that almost every woman had one. Okay, this is a fertility cave, and it's in, I believe, Sonoma. And that is a vagina. And that's the linea alba seam. And if you follow the tissue and you know how to look at things and you know, like I said, I'm the only one on the face of the earth right now that can understand this and explain it. Of course, I have to be up close and see it and see the actual lines in the connective tissue and everything else, which is there. You just have to be up close and see it. This is kind of hard to make out, but the other one is just so obvious, it's unbelievable. I mean, here it is right there. Right up this line. Linea alba, the white line, and then the linea nigra when they get all pulled open. It's basically just pulling it open. I believe it's a loose junction of some sort. It's not a tight junction where it would rip. It can ease itself open. That's why it turns brown. This is very, very unusual. This is the first ever recorded breech birth of a fully clothed person. See, look, you see this? You have to be able to look at the tissue lines to be able to understand what you're looking at. These lines don't form for no reason whatsoever. And that, again, is a vagina cavity. You see, again, all this is saying is what the experts say. Utroba Cave, Bulgaria, a Trajan shrine carved around the 9th to 10th century BC, depicts the vagina of the goddess. There are other caves shaped, and they all say the same. You know, they have the same story. It was carved. No, it wasn't. And these all died in the Great Flood, and that was about 1500 BC, not the 10th century. All right, this is Wikipedia. They give you the same thing that all the experts are saying. It says there, let's see, it is also referred to as a cave womb or womb cave because the entrance shape of the vulva inside the cave resembles a uterus. That's just unbelievable. And they say, oh yeah, just accidental. Oh man, and the rest is just the same. The entrance is 3 meters tall and so forth. And they think it was carved and they say a certain date. And this one says 480 BC. The other one said 1000 BC. They have no clue. None. Zero. All right, one last time checking out the linea alba, linea nigra, or whatever it was. But it is the crack. As this thing soaked and was invaded by whatever invaded it, and it looks to be like it was in a very bloody area, a lot of blood here. A heart or something was real close. A lot of blood came and saturated into here, transition metals. Now, that's why it's so pink, because it's blood. The blood flushed down in here. And I have the same sort of stuff here. I have things that are just pink and they soaked with blood, and I have other ones that have no blood in them at all. It depends on how they died and what ran down into them. Now, it looks like this kid was going to be really healthy. And you can see he just poked right through that tissue. And all that happened when it was still moist. And then it dried out over the course of time. So this is, it doesn't get any more pristine than that. And I'm going to show you there's other ones that are not quite so pristine, such as this one here. This is located in the Crowra Forest, Kenya. Now, that could use a little maintenance. But you see, wherever you see green stuff growing, there was a lot of blood. And this just happens to be, the rectum, and this is, you know what it is. And that's the linea alba in this one, or the linea nigra. It depends. Was she pregnant or not? I don't know. But they all have that seam. And as they dried, it depends on where they were. Now, here's the key about mud fossils. If they were way up high on a mountainside or such in the flood, and they they got soaked and all, basically boiled out like almost everything else. But then the waters came down and they dried quickly. Then they get all cracked up and broken up like this because they dried quickly and they fall apart. Now, way down in the low parts where the water stayed for a long time, everything stayed perfect. And that's exactly where I am. That's the condition I have right here. All my stuff is absolutely flawless. And the reason it is because I am in the Central Connecticut Valley, Triassic rock. Central Connecticut Valley. What happened here was the waters boiled and everything cooked, and all of the body parts and everything, whatever was here died, basically, and all of the body parts were cooked out of the flesh. And there's a ton of mud, and then on top of that is all the body parts. And even like my goose here, Caesar, he died, and he's got all of the. It is a goose. There's no question about that. And there's his feathers. All right, he died flat in the flood too. And all my other stuff, I have DNA tested and CAT scan, everything else, and they all pretty much have one flat side. So it depends on if they were high up in altitude and drain quickly, they take on one texture, which is all cracked up. If they were way down low and in like a valley like I am in, and they soak for long periods of time in a certain condition, they just turned into perfect, exactly perfect copies because they're in the Triassic area. And then all of the waters ran off from my spot because I'm in a hill in this area, in this valley. So not only am I in this valley, which stayed wet for a long time, I'm on sort of a hill. So my stuff, all the mud ran off and left all the body parts. So it's just laying all over the top because the mud ran away and left the chunks. Now, who can stand up? Who will stand up for truth and talk about God and Jesus Christ and all the other religions? We've always considered all these other crazy people have crazy religions and crazy gods and all that. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Time to rethink this whole thing and engage respectfully with other people, and because they have all kinds of different religious traditions. Are they good? Are they bad? Who knows? I have some ideas now that I'd like to bounce off people, but it's not allowed. You can't talk about this kind of stuff. And I'm going to show you some clips about what did happen to people that did talk about it. But the first thing is there were giants in the earth in those days. And then after that, then when the sons of God went into the daughters of men, they had children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Those were the men of renown. Those were the sons of God that went into the daughters of men. Their kids were big, but they weren't huge. They weren't like the giants that were in the earth. You want to see the size of those? I'll show you right now. We just saw a 10-foot tall vagina. That's fairly good size. It's about, I would say, maybe about the same size as the one I have back here in my property, which I have the fingertips from it with the fingerprint, the fingernail, everything on it, DNA tested, 100% human. So these things were here, there's no question about that. And the big ones were the ones that were in the earth. And that's in the ancient text in the Greek. Apollodorus talks about it. These are titans. The titans were entombed in the earth. There were giants in the earth in those days. And then after that, a whole new set of giants. And they were the little puppies compared to the ones that were in it. And that's why nobody can stand up and speak about this without being destroyed. It's too much for the human mind to accept. Can Donald Trump do anything about this? Nobody else seems to be able to. He seems to be able to run his mouth about everything. Why not about this? I want to hear about this, Donald. If you want truth and you want to hear the real truth about our past and you want everything to be reality, and I think it would make a better place on earth that if everybody had truth. Like God says, God said, I have no greater joy than to see my children walk in truth. And I'm going to tell you something. Well, let me show you a couple of clips that'll tell you exactly what we're doing here on Earth and what's going on and what you should look for. And if you find it, is it important? All right, listen to this. This is extremely important. These are supposed to be the secret sayings of Jesus Christ while he was walking around on Earth, speaking and talking, and Judas Didymus Thomas wrote these down, who was doubting Thomas. He said, whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. Now, the interpretation, you're not going to understand every one of these. There's no way in the world. But the interpretation now, I'm taking it as the meaning of what I am showing you. And what I am showing you, Jesus said, let him who seeks. Now, if you don't seek, just go sit in the woods somewhere and leave us alone. But if you're seeking, continue seeking until you find. When you find, you will become troubled. You will be disturbed. When you become troubled, you will be astonished and rule over the all. Maybe Trump is going to be the one that rules over the all. I don't know. I have no idea. But if he could stand up and say something, at least we can get somewhere towards truth. I don't see anybody else being able to do it. All right, look at this, 56. I just showed you the earth is nothing but a corpse and a body. Whoever has come to understand the world has found a corpse. Whoever has found a corpse is superior to the world. So Donald, if you want to be superior to the world, find the world is a corpse and let everybody know about it. Jesus said, he who has recognized the world has found the body. Yes, but he who has found a body is superior to the world. So who wants to be superior to the world? Well, the one that speaks and makes his voice known. Consider the time of your calling. That's the key. And this is the time of our calling. These things are for you to see and for others as a test. All right, this is how bad it is in the universities, and they're all the same. They ended up settling a lawsuit, this university, with Mark Armitage, this guy here, after he found soft tissue in the dinosaur bones. The same with Mary Schweitzer, and she was also really slapped around. But Armitage, they just got rid of him. Now listen to this. In May 2012, Armitage went on a dinosaur dig at the famous fossil site of Hell Creek in Montana. He unearthed the largest Triceratops horn ever found. Back at the CSUN laboratory, he put the fossil under the microscope and made the startling discovery: unfossilized, undecayed tissue was present. All right? Which means it couldn't have been 65 million years old, they say, if that was true. And it was true, and there's no question it is true. And these things were not that old, which is also true. But they went ballistic. It said the soft tissue could not have possibly remained, he says. His findings, seconded groundbreaking discovery by noted molecular paleontologist Mary Schweitzer, who was also basically destroyed during this transition time until the people started to agree. All right, so she triggered an earthquake in the paleontology when she published a soft tissue in dinosaur bones 2005, and they slapped her around like unbelievable. Now listen to this. This is amazing. Schweitzer subsequently postulated the iron is responsible for preserving the soft tissue. That's the blood. Blood preserves like nothing else. It's absolutely amazing. Blood, which has the iron, never goes bad, really. She's 100% right about the iron. You see that right there? That's blood inside of a rock. That's literally blood. And this is a heart. And as it opened up, he smacked it. A friend of mine, Phil Harris, who unfortunately passed away, but he saw this red spot and smacked it with a hammer, and it popped right off, which is the plumbing, which everything goes into these chambers. And they break right on that seam. And it's just saturated with red blood. She's right about 100%. And see, as it dried out, it turned black into the vein-style blood. And so Mary Schweitzer was right, and she took a beating for it. this is what happened to him. He says a biology professor had come into his office, Mark Armitage's office, and said, "We are not going to tolerate your religion in this department." Armitage fought back. Professors and students alike had praised his work managing the microscope lab. His suit alleged he was excluded from a secret meeting in microscopy committee in a smoking gun email. University officials suggested they could ease Armitage out of his part-time position by making it full-time. A colleague described the process as a witch hunt, according to Inside. So they basically fired him. He sued and he got a settlement. Now, this is the way they treat you when you bring stuff forward. And the same thing happened to Mary Schweitzer, and the same thing happened to me. And the first words out of the Yale professor, Derek Briggs, who I've worked with on my stuff for years now, the first words he said to me when I said, I have ancient body parts and some of them are giants. He said, "Oh, what, you must be a creationist," or "What are you, a creationist?" Something like that. And I said, "No, these things are real." And he said, "Oh, no, it's just rocks. You can't be right." And I sent him all the DNA tests, the CAT scans, the specimens, all that stuff. He wouldn't allow me to present the specimens to him. He just refused. But we did have a head that we had the CAT scanned, because he said, "No, that can't be real." We had a CAT scanned, and that ended up being a nightmare. So we got to get rid of the Department of Education. And these Ivy League schools, as far as I'm concerned, that's poison ivy now. That is not anywhere you want to go to learn truth. They could care less about it. It's all about denial of God. Basically, and that's what it boils down to. To keep these things that they've said, the only way they can do that is to deny God. And then they go after people that have any kind of religious affiliation. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't have one, you're in trouble as far as I'm concerned. All right, I just want you to be sure that you understand that I have undeniable evidence of what I'm presenting. I had 3 DNA tests done on samples that I submitted in glassine bags extracted from deep inside the samples from an artery. And I can easily find the arteries in these things. I took them out of fingertips, and one of them was directly out of a lung. I'll show you these samples in a minute. And these are the 3. And Helix Biolabs did a fabulous job, and he took some heat for this, because nobody, some professors were fired and everything else. Mary Schweitzer did not have a good time. And she was on 60 Minutes presenting her evidence, and then she got slammed. They just don't like this. Now, they did all this. This was a PCR DNA test, very, very good quality, and the stuff that I submitted came out to be excellent quality. And they did all this. The negative controls were all negative, meaning there was no contamination. And these were the different primers they used, which is a little technical, but this was the deal. Excellent quality DNA sequence is obtained for the 36-inch tip sample and the lung sample using certain primers. Now, these were the Homo sapiens, cytochrome B, and D loop. They're Homo sapien. Now, I said, is that modern human? He said, yes. They were modern human, mitochondrial. Now, that's the mother's side. So there's no father's side on this. And it was when the when the sons of God, which is the male side of the DNA, we only looked at the maternal side. And that is the daughters of men. So that could mean something, I don't know. But this was a DNA test. It's online, anybody can see it. And here's what these specimens were. Okay, all the claims in the Bible about giants on the earth, and even Enoch talking about enormous giants, and I agree with that. We have found evidence to support Enoch's statements. This is a fingertip. That's the little pad in the back of the fingertip that bumps up against the next bone. This is the fingernail. You see it? That's the fingernail. Take your time and look at it. All right, let me focus in on it. Now this is the vein and the artery. Again, fingernail. perfectly preserved. Comes right up around here and well taken care of, actually. Now this was complete when I first found it. And I could not see any place to get any blood out of it. So I know that these fingertips are absolutely saturated with blood, so I hit it with a hammer, a pretty good sized hammer, and it just popped off like a scab. And it still has the fingerprints on it. So don't forget, here's the fingernail. Perfect, absolutely flawless. There's where the pad that bumps up against the next bone so that they don't scrape bone to bone. That's the pad. These are the vein and artery. And this still has the fingerprints on it. You see how close it is to the fingernail? You look at your own fingernails. You have fingerprints right up there next to it too. So let's see what the fingerprints look like. And don't forget, it came off just like a scab. All right, there were definitely giants on the earth. This is the fingerprint side. And this is what your fingers and the palms of your hands and your feet and so forth had what I call grip skin, traction skin, whatever. And it's a very heavy duty thing. It's like having a glove on your hand, and it's made to wear away. And these are sweat pores, and these are the fingerprint ridges, just like you have in your hand. Sweat pores are here. These are the sweat pores. You see it? These are the fingerprint ridges. The fingernail was right up here, and I'm going to show you this piece in a second. When I whacked that thing, it popped off just like a scab, just like this. It popped right off. And then underneath, it's just saturated with blood. And this is the piece right here. You see it? There's the little sweat pores. Now, this time, over here is where the fingernail went, right here. All right, this is a good sized guy. Now, you see this? It's just like a scab. It's just like a big flat piece, just like this. It just popped right off. I was surprised. And when I saw the fingerprints, I freaked out. Now, underneath, inside here, is saturated with blood. And the quality was excellent. He said excellent quality. He said it was just basically like blood. You see this? This is what's in the fingertips. These are the terminals for the vein, or for the artery coming down, and then it webs over to the vein and it comes back. So they're the ends. Your fingertips and your toes are the ends of your circulatory system, basically. And they're just flush with blood. So once you get below that keratinized layer, which is the grip skin, you're right into the blood. That's why they're very good, the fingertips, and they preserve excellently. The more blood you have, the better it preserves. Blood is an extremely good preservative. Now, this is a human-sized lung, and this is the lung right here. And it's flat like a pancake. And that's because they all died in the flood, and that's what caused nucleophilic substitution to invade the body organs and so forth, because the tissue boiled off of the bodies. And that is written in the ancient text in a number of places, specifically in the Colburn Bible as well as other places. But let me read to you what it says in the Colburn Bible. And what happened was all of the bodies just boiled, and just like you boil them in a pot, in certain areas. This particular area I am in is the Triassic rock area, and it's, I believe it was like a sea area, not a sea area, but like a lake, a big lake in this area. And the waters in here boiled really good, and cooked all the flesh off these creatures, and ended up with all these body parts. And that's a lung. This is the same lung as this one here. And I'm going to show you up close. I drilled a hole into this and got blood right out of here. All right, long time ago. Just you need a little pin drill. And this blood all is saturated with blood. And this one has all of its pleura, which is the coating, still on it, which is the fabric bag that does this. It's like a rubbery bag. This one, completely gone. You can see the alveoli. See all the little holes? See all that? Those are the alveoli. And some of those alveoli still had blood in them because it was laying this way. This was sticking up and filled with silicates, and that's because it was a silicate-rich ocean. But here, the blood actually leaked back out of it, see? You know, here and there, there's little blobs coming out of it. Every one of these spots had a little, and it was pretty red. So this was DNA tested and CAT scanned. And again, it was boiled out of creature's body. And that was where the heart would be. So the guy died laying like this, and everything boiled away. And when it was done, the back was flat. This is a goose. All right? That's his little beak hole there. His eye and his bill or beak, whatever they call that thing right there. It's a little bit different. You can actually see the differences in things when you pay real close attention. And of course there's his feathers. And again, flat as a pancake on one side, died in a flood. Now, this was the great flood. This is in the Bible, and it's in all the other texts too, so nobody's missing that. Nobody's missing a thing about the giants. Nobody's missing a thing about the dragons. They all had the same story, and it's totally dismissed by academia. And on the other side, the really strict Bible people say, no, we can't talk about this other stuff because it wasn't exactly that way in the Bible. Well, let me show you something about the Colburn Bible, which goes back to the same time as the Christian Bible. 3,600 years ago, approximately, this particular Bible was written. Let's see what they had to say about this boiling hot event. Okay, so I showed you what I had to offer as evidence, and DNA and CAT scans and specimens are all still here. They can all be tested now, and it's going to be a lot easier to do. This was the first test ever done that I know of on ancient human DNA in mud fossils for sure. And I presented all this to everybody, all the universities. They totally rejected it, called me a crazy person. So I wrote the book about it in 2015. Well, guess what else happened in 2015? I came across this article. Now, Velikovsky recorded that the fiery comet, which later turned out to be Venus, almost hit Earth, boiled all the oceans and the waters and so forth. I think it boiled the lower waters where there's not so much volume. The entire oceans, I don't know. But at the same time, it condensed all the atmosphere up above, the oxygens and hydrogens, and turned it into water, compressed it. And it would have rained boiling hot water. And in addition, the energy would be like a bazillion, trillion atomic bombs that, are same size as us planet, almost hitting us. Whew. Now here's what it says. This is what I ran across in 2015. The warning of Revelation. All this stuff dropped on me like a bomb, and I'm not kidding you. And this was all, something came to me, said, go out in the woods, look. I found the giants. I looked up online. It said, these things are for you to see and for others as a test. I found nobody was interested in taking a test, and the ones that did laughed at me, and it didn't work out. So this is about the Colburn Bible. Don't forget, I look at every text. Now, this is the Colburn Bible Revealed Secrets. Now, it's a parallel Bible. As with the Book of Enoch in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it was omitted from the Bible. It was just too much. They couldn't accept it. It didn't have all the little bits and pieces they wanted to hear. That's why. The Book of Enoch, I'm telling you, I believe that's true. And this seems to be true in the Dead Sea Scrolls too. Now, Colburn was protected by the Chaldeans, saved before burning of Glastonbury Monastery in Scotland. And then it went to New Zealand. Now, he was particularly interested in the timing, trying to establish a timeline. What seems to have emerged is that the major Earth changes, the 3 days of darkness for the northern hemisphere, with sunrise west for a few days, comes just ahead of rotation stoppage and a pole shift, all within weeks. Well, this is when you take Venus coming in like this, and it almost hits our Earth and bounces off, basically. It would combust the star. Everything would be a disaster. The Earth would stop rotating. It would push against our rotation. It would push back. And we could have 3 days of darkness. And everybody did record that kind of stuff. Everything that I'm talking about was recorded. I'm not making any of this stuff up. So these, like in the Bible, it says, I forget who it was, says to stand still, don't move, the sun, or whatever. There was all kinds of stories about the Earth not spinning. No. So this all happened within weeks. Now, to compare the sequence of events described in the Colburn Bible to what is occurring today. Wisdom from the ancients. Newly revealed Egyptian Celtic wisdom text offers the knowledge of those who survived the past global catastrophes so we can live. This seems to be a reoccurring thing, and it seems to be every 3,600 years, which is where we're at right now. Now, a millennia ago, Egyptian Celtic authors recorded prophetic warnings for the future, and their harbingers of signs are now converging on these times. And I agree with that. These predictions are contained in the Colburn Bible, a secular wisdom text studied in the days of Jesus and lovingly preserved by generations of Celtic mystics in Great Britain. Now, it says it's nearly as big as the King James Bible. 3,600-year-old text warns of an imminent Armageddon-like conflict with radical Islam, but this is not the greatest threat. All right, so they've been fighting back and forth for 3,600 years. And this is the other one. The greatest threat is here. It says the authors of the Colburn Bible predict an end to life as we know it by a celestial event. It will be return of a massive space object in a long elliptical orbit around our sun, known to the Egyptians and Hebrews as the Destroyer, and the Celts later called it the Frightener. Now listen to what this says. This is where the seas were boiling. It says, when blood drops upon the earth, the Destroyer will appear. Mountains will open up and belch forth fire and ashes. Trees will be destroyed, and all living things engulfed. Waters will be swallowed up by the land, and seas will boil. Heavens will burn brightly and readily. And then it goes on for kind of a bad end here. But it does just say at the end here, in those days men will have the great book before them. Wisdom will be revealed. The few will be gathered for the stand. It is the hour of trial. The dauntless ones will survive. The stout-hearted will not go down to destruction. That's what it says. Now, who's stout-hearted? Who's been standing up? Who hasn't been? Who's been against truth? Who's been for truth? I don't know. That's just something you're going to have to make up your own mind, but I'm going for truth. So I feel like I'm on the good side of this. Okay, so remember when I told you I did get a message from, I believe it's God, Jesus, somebody. What was happening? I was studying the Eye of the Sahara, which is right here, which is, to me, was Atlantis, that Plato talked about. And it was washed away like overnight, and I believe created the Cape Verde Islands. It just washed all this stuff out and piled up here and then finally splayed around, if you can see. See how all that looked like it would wash right out there. And this is what they call an alluvial plain. It's like a flat mud flat. And then that piled up, and that's how that Cape Verde Islands came to be. Now, so I'm going on for, at least a couple of years looking at the Eye of the Sahara very carefully. And if you look at it carefully, it's hard to believe what it actually is. But, you know, it looks like it's got all these little boat docks coming in and all that stuff. Well, there's more to this story than what you see here. But it certainly looked like Atlantis. So I kept studying this and seeing what Plato had to say about it and all that business now. And there is a straits here that I don't think too many people know about or have spoken about. And so I'm trying to line it up with Atlantis. Now, at the same time, so now don't forget, this goes on maybe, I don't know, a year or two. I was playing around here, but I'm doing a lot of things too. And I can't get my message out to anybody. So I'm sitting here, and I might have been leaving looking at Atlantis. I really don't remember what I was doing at that moment. But I was basically talking to God, saying, I cannot get this message out. You said it's for me to see and for others as a test. I can't get the test out. My family thinks I'm crazy. I've lost everybody in my life, basically, that had any respect for me. Now they think I'm a nut job. And, there's just no conversation. It's dead silence when I come around. So, at least, anyway, it's a tough thing to speak about this. You can't speak about it without being attacked. When I did, 15 years ago, it was just, the guy's crazy. And from 100% across the board. So I'm sitting here saying, God, you picked the wrong guy. I cannot do this. It's just not going to happen. They're never going to listen. I'm ostracized. Everything I do is blocked now. Basically, I've blocked everywhere. And all of a sudden, I hear from behind me, "Look in Morocco." And I'm thinking, what the hell is that? And I'm serious. It was just like somebody talking to me. I turn around, look, and the TV was on in the background, but it was a car commercial. It had nothing to do with Morocco. They were talking about a car. And I'm thinking, how did I hear that? So I said, I click on Google. So here I am. Remember, I've been 2 years looking here. I click on Google and I go, let me look in Morocco. Well, here's Morocco. Guess what I find? A dragon attacking a fish. Instantly I saw that. This is a gigantic fish. Gigantic. There's his fin, and this is the dragon's head. All right, there's his head right there, and he's spitting this stuff down to kill this fish. I have gone over this for the last 10 years. And I mean very, very carefully. It's absolutely undeniable. You can even see down into the fish's body the veins and arteries, capillaries, lymphatic system, everything. You can even see the lymph nodes being destroyed by the toxin. All right, and here's the dragon's head right there. Now, before I look at it, and we're going to go down here, let me show you what it looks like drawn out here. Whoops. Here he is right here. This is what he really looks like. He's spitting all this stuff down. All this down here you're going to see is coloration, but all it is blood runoff. His throat runs right down here. He has a red flared eye. And this is all the toxins running out from his beards. Now, let's go back to look at it here on Google. Where'd you go, Google? Here you are. Now, here's the spit coming down onto the fish. It ate right down into his vital flesh here. And we'll look at this, and I'll show you his veins and arteries. What I'm saying is, if Donald Trump is really interested in truth, you have to pay attention to this. I want you to try to contact him somehow, because I can't get through to anybody. I've tried everybody, but I haven't tried Donald Trump as I should have, or I have tried, but I just nothing ever seems to connect for me. So anyway, whatever. There's his red flared eye right there. This is all the stuff he spit down, and it is nasty. It's absolutely toxic and nasty, and ate right through the fish's back. Now, these are his beards coming down from his throat. Now here's his throat coming down here all the way down. That's his throat. And right down here, it's cut. You see right there, there's a gash. All these are dragon scales. All dragon scales. all the way up. This is his throat. And this is called the Dra Valley, which is the Dragon Valley. And all of that is his throat. His body goes up this way. All right, so a big long neck, back to this huge body. His legs come down this way, and they were attached to coils that ran way down. Now, the tail continues all the way back here. This is more dragon scales here, you can see them. And this is blood runoff, which is transition metals that accumulate in the blood, because this is a swale here. All right, the blood was in the tail and it collected down here and it had to pump out of there, and this is what happens when body fluids run off. But you can see the dragon scales. All right? Those aren't just hills and valleys. All right, those are dragon scales. And this thing was tough. It looks like, and they said it was, well, it's 1,100 miles long. It goes all the way out to here. This is still the dragon tail, and it's got feathers out here. It's feathered. It'll take a while to settle in here, but these are feathered, the tail. And that's why you got green things growing. They like feathers. Green feathers grow things very, very well. So he goes all the way from here to here. Now, like I said, the throat is cut right down here. You see right here, swoosh. And you see the black and the red running out. That's where it just gushed red and black blood out, which is vein and artery. This up here was just basically runoff of the decaying, decomposing fluids. Down here is a different story. Down here is blood gushing all out. You see it? This is just a blood gusher here. All of that. All right. That's a blood gusher. The rest is just, a dead, decaying body sort of has fluids that run out of it, and that's this. Now, spitting out of his throat here, all the way down to the fish's back. Remember I said that we could see the blood vessels? Look at this. All the way down through the fin. So the fin is up here. All the way down here, you can actually see the blood vessels. You see that? Not only can you see that, you can see better than you can see in a CAT scan or whatever. We're right down, these are arteries. The big ones are arteries. All right, you come down, the black ones are veins. The black tubes are veins. So the arteries come down, they pump their blood everywhere. You see them, they're everywhere. Yeah, and every single cell needs to be pumped with blood. The black tubes coming back are veins. All right, now what's happening at the vein is the capillaries dump their used blood into the vein to pump back up. And then these little bitty things coming all over. These are lymph vessels. You see them? They're everywhere. And they pick up the fluids that are supposed to be pumped back into your lymph system. They're not supposed to go up where the rest of the vein blood goes. So that's what's happening right here. These are capillaries. All right. Get any doctor. Just get a doctor, an anatomist, and have them look at it. You can't miss it. It's impossible to miss. Every one of them has the same architecture. Every one of them. That's not hills and valleys. That's not hills and valleys. These are arteries, veins, capillaries, and lymph ducts. And the lymph ones are so tiny. Like, look down here. Here's where we're dumping blood into a vein. All right. Well, the veins look pretty small, but look what happens when you get down to where you're in your lymph ducts. You see these little ones? Those are all the lymph ducts. And they suck in, you know, they have like little cuts in them. As the fluids pass by, I guess the littlest fluids get into them somehow. And they suck it all back up. But this is just like we sandblasted the top of the fish's body away, and we can see every little bit in detail. That's all the red blood coming down till it transfers it through the tiny pinchers at the capillaries and squirts into the veins. All right, and I also see this one here is perfect. Look at that one. You know, this was eaten away at, so it's probably degraded to some degree. But we can see this exact same architecture. You see all the little blood, all the little lymph nodes, lymph ducts, and they bring the lymph fluid to the lymph nodes. And this is the fluid-filled highway that covers the whole body. This, and it sends out enzymes and bacteria. They probably can fit in those tubes, but these are your blood vessels and your capillaries. And I think I'd have to look it up how much, if red blood cells are bigger than bacteria. I'm sure they are. You see that this is like blood still coming through there. It's eaten down into it. Isn't that amazing? It's supposed to be dumping in here. All right, so anyway, that's your vascular system: veins, arteries, capillaries, lymph nodes, lymph ducts. Now, what about the lymph nodes? Well, there's lymph nodes too, and they are being attacked over here and being killed. You see, those are lymph nodes. Remember I showed you those little tubes? Those tubes end up squirting fluids all around the body where they're needed, and they're needed here to try to fix up this dragon spit. All right, so they're trying to fix this by passing by and collecting it and bringing it over to the lymph nodes. You see it coming down here to the lymph nodes, bringing it down? Well, the lymph nodes can't handle it. It's too much. That's all that lymph fluid coming in. And it's killing everything, the lymph duct inside here, the lymph node. All right, and again, same thing comes here. You got your major bits coming in, and then you've got all of these little filtration units here, keeping the big stuff out and letting the normal little bits come in. And I would imagine there's probably chemistry going on out here to break down the big things out here, but it's just overwhelming. They can't handle it. Look at this, what's coming down at it. It's just way too much. So it cannot process, and therefore what's happening here is it's dying, it's dead. All right, this was a lymph node that was destroyed by the invasion of that toxins. See all these little webbing here? I mean, that's some nasty, nasty, nasty stuff coming in. And the other lymph nodes are the same. This one down here is being destroyed as well. You see all that stuff coming in? Same filtration units. Overwhelmed. That one's not quite as dead yet, but right on the margins. Look at how much of this stuff is trying to get in here. And it appears as it seeps in, it turns blacker and blacker on the inside. The first one I showed you was the first one attacked.